Hello, and welcome to the CDO Magazine interview series. I'm Cindi Howson, Chief Data Strategy Officer at ThoughtSpot and host of the Data Chief podcast. Today, I'm thrilled to be interviewing Eric Hirschhorn, the Chief Data Officer of Bank of New York. Eric, welcome.
Thank you so much. It's a pleasure to be here.
Let's talk a little bit more about your AI strategy. How do you ensure that you're aligning your AI strategy to value or ultimately BNY's business strategy?
Great question. There's a gentleman, a peer of mine, who runs our AI hub, and that's really our hub and spoke platform and modeling strategy for the company. And we are inextricable partners in that journey because AI sits on the foundations of good data, and so the permissioning for the data, the owners of data, how we think about entitlements and access, all propagates through our AI complex. So there's no central set of entitlements. Data is entitled by owners at source, and that propagates through. And then, we share a common ethics structure. We share a common privacy structure. We share a common control structure, and that means that our fortunes are linked. And our data complex is one of the largest users of our AI complex. So we're using it for data quality. We're going through millions of legacy contracts to extract value out of unstructured data. We're using that to drive our master data strategy. So if you think about what's sitting in a million customer records, it's informed by what's in PDF sitting on a bit of disk before, that we hadn't necessarily mined before. And so we find there's definitely a hand in glove relationship between the CDO and the head of AI. And
Yeah.
that partnership's absolute.
Yeah, and there should be that tight connection. For some, it's often embodied in a single role. It's just a question of where on the continuum is it technology versus business value versus data. You mentioned semi-structured data, this was a hot topic at the recent CDO Magazine New York City meetup and dinner. And organizations seem to be able to extract value from semi-structured data. You talked about PDFs, contracts, and what have you. And then there's the structured data. But trying to marry the two still seems to be elusive. What do you think here?
So I think, when we step back and we look at a use case, and the use case is, again, I've got customer data or product data or what have you, and some of the artifacts that govern that information is sitting in an unstructured document somewhere. We found incredible value at hooking up large language models to repositories of PDFs and going and scanning them and checking what's in our databases. So really validating what's in the structured data repositories using unstructured data. We've gone through kind of our governance lifecycle to make sure that those models are approved and they've been back tested and we've ground truth and all of that. That's been super, super important. But what it's enabled us to do is not take for granted that what was in our databases was accurate or corresponds to information that was sitting in unstructured information that maybe was platformed just a couple of years ago. And we've used that to drive a better operating model. We can see, make sure that what we're contracted for is what we're using. We could make sure that we're using everything that we've contracted for. So that's both ways. Are you doing what you're supposed to do, or are you leaving value on the table? When you think about things like transitions of indices, like we saw with LIBOR a few years ago, how do I go scan a million contracts and figure out where my risk or opportunity is related to what's in those contracts? Using human capital for that is prohibitive and error prone. Training the machines to look at that information and interpret it has really been an incredible accelerant on driving commercial outcomes.
Yeah, a huge boon. Now, analyzing this data, and you also talked about ensuring the guardrails are in place, also requires a degree of AI literacy. How has the bank approached this?
So, another great question. I think, guardrails is a wonderful word. I think that's something that we've really embraced. I've probably said that term, I use that term more in the last year than in the last 20, because I just think it's so apropos of what we're doing. I think there's so much flexibility in the technology around us. There's so much curiosity, and the barrier to entry is super low. If you can write a question into a text box, you can use a large language model. So we really have to think about guardrails as not just technology or information security. We really have to think of them in terms of literacy, as you spoke of. To use our AI platform, you need to take a training course. You need to be certified. It's not a multi-hour thing. It's very straightforward, but it really educates the viewer in terms of what is ethics, what is privacy, what is our obligation, what is the efficacy of the information coming out of these language models, to what extent can you rely on it, what kind of check and challenge should you be doing on the information that comes out, and also what are our operating model values. Can you take the information out of a large language model and do this or that with it? And so we've been very prescriptive about ensuring that we maintain the guardrails. We think AI is incredible opportunity for our company and the world around us. But we also think that if we're not vigilant about those guardrails, people will unintentionally, not use it in a way that comports with our value system. So one, you need to take a training course. Two, you need to operate those machines with certain operating models. So you can't take information from here and put it there without being checked by a third party, and so on and so forth. And third, there are special considerations when we think about what data sets we're willing to put into that large language model. And as I mentioned, all of those large language models are sandboxed. So we're never putting any information out into the public domain. That may be good for some companies doing some types of work, but for us, that is not something that comports with our value system.
Yeah, I think in financial services and the sheer volume of the data that you're handling, that makes sense. And I think your customers would be happy to hear that. If so, you mentioned the training that people have to go through. Was this something that people can just self-elect, or has there been an organizational, I don't want to use the word edict, mandate, encouragement to say everyone should do this, or is it certain roles, certain levels?
It's and as opposed to or. So there are certain job descriptions where you must take the training as part of your
Okay.
job. You're going to come in contact with this technology, and we are not going to be self-insured. We want people to be trained. I envision that training will be periodically updated and mandated, as we see with some of our compliance training. There are other job roles where we think this would be additive to the tool set that you may have on your desk, but we have yet to mandate it. We do expect that at some point, the majority of the firm will have taken the training. We do see a high double-digit percentage of the firm trained to date, and we think that continues. Most often, people elect to take that training. And we've rolled out our platform in stages, but it's really a whole firm activity, and we're quite passionate about the opportunities ahead, but staying vigilant on ensuring those guardrails are implemented at the same time.
Yeah, so that's great. High double digits. The other stakeholder with generative AI and AI in general, of course, in the last 2 years, is boardrooms. How has your board set or influenced the AI strategy?
So, I would say without commenting on our board specifically, I think the culture of the firm has really embraced, in terms of, we think about the pillars and the principles of how we run the company, which are formally written down, like many of our peers who have mission statements and so on. And we think about being more for our clients. We think about running our company better, and we think about powering our culture. Um, you know, at whatever level of management, right up to the CEO of the company, those pillars really flow through our, kind of the potential we see with our AI ambitions. We just see the potential to use this technology to run the company better. We think there are manual processes that we could be using, these models to run for us or assist us with, and free our people up to work on more complex tasks. We think we can use these models to provide more insights to our clients, right? We can be more for our clients using these models. And in other places, we find that they are great agents in terms of educating our people, right? In terms of synthesizing the knowledge that we have inside the firm and making that knowledge available to people in various job families. So from kind of from stem to stern, the transformation of our company or the way we run our company is deeply impacted by the possibilities that are coming to fruition by using AI.
Yeah, so I love the phrase from stem to stern. And it reminds me also, somebody once said to me, their hope is that AI takes away the drudgery of a lot of the roles. And it sounds like that's the case for sure at Bank of New York. Eric, thank you so much for joining us today. For more interviews and insights, please be sure to visit cdomagazine.tech.
Thanks very much.